Hi, my name is Dawar and you're watching Regent Park TV. On February 19, 2026, the Planning Committee of the Regent Park Social Development Plan Network came together to discuss key governance matters related to internal conflicts. Facilitated by Adonis Huggins, the meeting focused on two major items: the formalization of the conflict resolution administrator role and discussions around the SDP network's email use and letter violation policy. The first item on the agenda was the conflict resolution administrator position, developed as part of the SDP network's broader shaping culture policy. Facilitator Adonis Huggins opened the discussion by providing context on why the role was created and how it fits within the network's commitment to accountability and respectful engagement. He then passed the floor to longtime SDP member Michael Rosenberg. Michael explained the responsibilities of the conflict resolution administrator, outlining how the position would help mediate disputes, clarify procedures, and ensure that concerns raised within the network are handled fairly and transparently. Let's take you into that discussion.
Let's go on to the role of a conflict resolution administrator. Just to give you context before we go to Michael, is that we have, did we remind me if this is true, that we approved the incident report form?
Yes.
We did, right? Michael?
Am I on? Yes.
Yeah, yes, we did. We approved the incident report form last planning committee meeting. We will put it on the website in the conflict resolution section, and also make it available to download for people. So, so part of that stage is when someone has a conflict, they fill out the incident report form, and then they send it to the conflict resolution administrator, which we at this point don't have. So I'm now going to give to Michael to explain the role of the conflict resolution administrator. Go for it, Michael. And Wally, can you bring up the form, the Michael's document?
Okay, so overall, we have a number of different documents that fully describe the conflict resolution process. This is just excerpted from those to take the parts that refer to the conflict resolution administrator. So this is what the conflict administrator does within the whole process. So they basically receive from people in writing their concerns and their estimation of who's involved in the conflict. So people will write up what they think happened, who was involved, and there are a number of other questions. Obviously, anybody who's going to do this position should be fully familiar with all the other documents that describe the process and the form that people are going to be filling out to start the process. And then the conflict resolution administrator is available to help people administer the process. So in other words, to help them explain the form to them, explain the process to them, contact the mediators, give them the list of recommended mediators. The process does not require that they use a mediator on the recommended list. So the administrator also has to be aware of that. But they can provide the list of the recommended mediators and help people choose somebody. And then the actual content of the process, we actually decided to use a more general term than mediator, which we called resource person, because sometimes they may not want a process that is exactly mediation. So it's a little bit more flexible in that sense. But just to begin with, people would generally understand this as mediation. So once those steps have been done to set up the process, then the conflict resolution administrator is not really involved. The resource people or person is. And then at the end, the administrator takes the result and presents it back to the group where the conflict occurred. And by group where it occurred, we mean like the subcommittee or part of the SDP in which it occurred. So those are the steps, basically the very beginning, and just ensuring that the report comes back at the end is what the administrator does.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions? So the role is right here that people can read. We're hoping to approve this today. So do people have any changes, revisions, or questions that they like to ask at this point in time about the role of the conflict resolution administrator?
With an iPhone 2, Adonis, if you can't see the screen, iPhone 2.
That's me, I think.
Yeah.
Hi. My name is Karen Grant. I came late to the meeting. But I live in the Oak Street Co-op, and I was on the member relations committee at one point, and it's along the same, because you're looking for somebody for this position, is that correct?
Well, at this point, we're looking to approve the role.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Not
I
somebody.
just want to clarify something, actually. The role is part of a larger document. So if we want to make any significant changes to this, like other than like one or two words, we probably have to look at it in the context of the whole document and assume that that whole document hasn't been approved. I mean, it depends what the changes are, but if it really changes the scope, then we have to go back and review the whole document.
And how many pages is the document?
So, but we're at this point, we're just looking at this position that Waleed, if you could share it again, reshare. Can you
Waleed.
put it on the screen, Waleed?
Who can apply for these roles? Is it for anybody or just members from?
So that's a suggestion, a question and suggestion. So that's open to the group as well.
Okay.
Do people? Yes. So my thoughts would be it should be someone who is regularly involved with the SDP planning committee.
Okay.
Got it.
How many pages is the actual document that you need to be familiar with?
So the document is on, if you go to RPSDP network.ca.
It's there.
And you look in the conflict resolution process, all the documents are there.
Okay, but there's quite a few of them that you need to be familiar with, yeah?
There are a few, but it's been sort of categorized essentially into two documents at this point.
Okay.
There's the one that contains the entire meeting guidelines, conflict resolution, and other issues. So that one's a bit longer because it does have sections.
Right.
Then there's one that specifically describes the process that the conflict resolution administrator is going to be involved in.
Right.
That document is about 3 pages.
Okay. So at this
point, I think there was a large print version of it that makes it seem longer than that, but in normal print, it's about 3 pages.
Okay. So at this point right now, you just want to approve this document so you can work towards finding a facilitator. Is that the correct understanding?
Correct.
Okay.
And
I apologize, I was late.
Familiar with the documents, like they'll be handy, so it's not like you have to have them memorized.
Right. But at least you know the proper procedure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So any further questions around this document itself?
No, it's clear from my end.
Oh, excuse me.
All right.
Yeah, the main purpose of the longer document is to say what happens between those early steps and the end of the process, which most of it does not involve the conflict resolution administrator.
All right. So we're looking to approve the role of a conflict administrator. Well, approve the role of a conflict resolution administrator as proposed in this document. Any objections?
The document will be added to the other
The
document.
documents will be added to the conflict resolution section of the package.
Okay.
Any objections?
No, it seems great, I think.
Okay, so it's passed. And now we could go to the next part of the process.
Following questions and discussions from committee members, the document defining the role and its duties were formally approved by the Planning Committee. With the framework approved, the committee moved directly into nominations for the position.
The next part of the meeting is now to nominate. So we're looking for nominations now for the conflict resolution position. Again, this is a total volunteer position. It is again taking or helping someone fill out the incident report form, or taking an incident report form, and then guiding them through the process as stipulated in the conflict resolution documents. It's not necessary at this point to be fully knowledgeable of the documents, but there's a commitment when you take on this role that you will familiarize yourself with every piece of the document in order to assist whoever it is who is filling out, who is involved in the incidents, to guide them through the process.
Adonis?
Yes.
I know you're trying to move this quickly, but I would actually prefer that they were familiar with the documents and could explain that they do understand the documents before we had to make the decision. I'm not getting a sense that that's a huge issue. I believe that there is a goodwill to understand the documents. I'm just saying that would have made me more comfortable. We may not be able to take that step, but I don't feel we should rush this so much that we start making mistakes. So I hope that everything is clear enough, but I also wouldn't mind that if somebody really hasn't been familiar with the documents yet and they want to do this, then we could make the final decision next week.
I think I'm interested, but I have not looked at the documents at all. And I think that that's a very good suggestion.
Okay, so right now we're taking, I'm going forward, we're taking nominations. The nominations at this point can be, we can make a decisions about that next week, but during this, not the next planning committee. But the idea is, as Michael has said, that between now and the next planning committee, that that all the nominees are familiar with the documents.
I think that's a great idea, Adonis, because that way we'll have enough time to kind of review all the documents. And then if you want to change your mind after you become a nominee, you can do that.
And you see that there's a lot more work than you anticipated. That's very true.
Right.
And you can have more.
Yeah, but I want to clarify, there are a lot of documents the administrator will not be involved in most of the stuff that's in most of the documents, right? The administrator is only one part of one of the documents. The other documents don't even have anything to do with the conflict resolution process, so the administrator isn't involved in them at all. And even within the conflict resolution process, the administrator is primarily only involved until the resource people are selected. So it's not that big a job.
But you do have to be familiar with the documents at the same point. So you should like to read them over quickly isn't a good idea. So I think it's true. Like we can go forward with the nominations, but maybe finalize it next meeting.
Okay, so that's the process we're follow. So again, at this point, what we're doing is at this point taking nominations with the again proposal that that the nominees could choose not to accept the position, but also that they familiarize themselves with the documents.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay. So at this point, we want to take nominations. How we're taking nominations? First of all, let's agree on a couple of things. One, do we agree that it should be someone who is on the SDP planning committee, who regularly attends?
Yes.
Or should regularly attend if taking this position?
Yeah.
That's very important.
Any objections to that?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so that is good. In that case, let's take nominees. So the nominees don't actually have to be here as long as they are regular attendees. So if you have an idea of someone who regularly attends the planning committee who's not here, that could happen.
But I would like them to be at the meeting where we decide.
Yes.
So that we can get them to explain that they do understand the documents.
Yeah, so Michael is suggesting that part of the process that is that that whoever the nominees are would take questions from the SDP planning committee and as part of deciding who would be better to fill the role. And also too, it's not really who would be better. It could be about time commitments, could be, and also it could be where they want to decide to do it. I noticed that there's no terms in terms of, and maybe that's something we should discuss. There's no end term for the position. Is it an annual? Is it, any thoughts about that, Michael? Should it be the same as the SDP co-chairs, elected each year?
I think it should be annual. And I also, for having them at the meeting, it's not even so much that I think we should ask them questions. There might be one or two, but it's more just for them to explain in 5 sentences or so their understanding of the role, so we can have confidence that they did, in fact, know what they were getting into and what they would be expected to do and not to do.
Sorry,
Okay.
can I add on to that? Sorry, I agree. I totally agree with Michael. However, I would suggest to do semi-annually, because annually will pile up the work. If we do semi-annually, it will be like a kind of like a mark on that. Okay, we did half the year, and then another half year is, and then we do the final one annually.
That might be, thanks for that. My thoughts is all the co-chairs are annually, and it might be better that we keep it that way just for administrative. It doesn't mean you can't leave the position or feel that whoever takes this on may decide in 3 months, for instance, that don't want to continue with the position. So you can leave anytime, as any co-chair can. But generally for administrative purposes, every September, we have a annual election for co-chairs, and this could be just added to that role, just to make it easier. Any
Okay,
thought?
yeah, sure. That works. Sorry, I was just thinking more of like a logistic perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it makes a lot of difference one way or the other. In any case, even if we do it that way, it'll still give you less than a year for the first portion anyways.
Got it.
Any other questions or feedback around this?
I'm new to this whole thing. I am interested, but I understand that I haven't been regularly to meetings. But I was going to say maybe there might be an alternate because, or is that too much? Because sometimes people are not at that particular meeting, or is that not unnecessary?
I don't think regular means attending every meeting. It just means, as far as I'm concerned, it means attending more than half the meetings.
Well, I haven't attended. I'm interested. I'm sorry. I'm curious, and I am of the committee. I'm new to sort of community service, so I'm like a work in progress. So I can understand why I wouldn't necessarily be eligible for the position, but moving forward, your actions speak louder than your words. So that was why I was thinking maybe I might be considered for an alternate position of this because I have done something similar to this in my co-op, and it's an important. It's not a role that you might only be of use once a year, but when it does come up, it is an important role because when people feel that they have not been addressed properly or they're not being heard properly, if that's not taken care of, it grows until it is taken care of.
Yeah, you're as eligible as any other member.
Well, except that I've my meeting attendance, I've been like 2, right? So I can understand why people would be hesitant because they don't really know me at all, as opposed to like yourself that are there regular. There's people that attend the majority of the meetings, and you would want somebody that's there because they need to be familiar with the issues of the past that might have brought up something that's happening in the future, right? So attendance is an important factor.
Well, not role.
Okay, wait, one at a time. First Dini, then Michael.
Not necessarily for this role. You don't need to because it's more of a navigator.
Okay.
Role.
Okay.
It's helping people, fill out the form or if that assistance is required, and just walking them through the process.
Okay.
Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I can. I'm not even putting a specific number on it. I'm not sticking to half the meetings or anything like that. I just don't want them to become out of touch with the planning committee. And I think like you have been to a few, so you're not out of touch with the planning committee as long as you keep coming back occasionally.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, folks. So couple of things. One is I believe we're making a revision to the position that it be elected annually every year. Any objections to that in terms of the terms?
Everything seems good from my end.
Okay. So saying that will be we'll add that to the position, the role of the position. Again, that will be available on the website for people to see that. And again, we're taking nominees. So open now for nominees. Again, it should be someone who regularly attends. It doesn't mean they have to be here tonight, but they should be here next, informed about them that they are nominees and ensure that they are here at the next planning committee when we vote for the conflict resolution person. So you can also nominate yourself.
Yeah. I would like to nominate myself.
Karen, you are now nominated. I'd like to nominate Tamia.
Oh, thank you.
There's 2 nominations. Anyone else?
Then I would like to nominate you, Adonis, because I would like to have a chance to work with you. And also because I really admire you, so I think we can work this together. No?
I feel I should decline that nomination because I'm really intense with some of the issues that are going on, and yeah, I don't feel I'd be a good person for this role.
Okay. See, I don't know the background.
It has to be someone who's more hands off in terms of the nitty gritty of all the details that happen in the SDP, and I'm quite involved at this point.
Okay, sorry, I don't know the background information. As I said, I just arrived. So yeah, for me it was just like I'll see you around and we'll work.
Yeah, and happy to work with anybody around that. Happy to work with anybody.
Okay, and then I just accept my nomination and
Great.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, great. We have 2 nominees. It's really good. It feels like a democratic process. Yes, so great. Thank you for both of you for nominating, being at this point accepting the nomination. Again, you could decline it if you so need after reading all the details of it. But we hope you both will stand and give us an opportunity to hear what you think and how you like to essentially what you think of the position, and give us an opportunity to ask you some questions.
After discussion and consideration, 2 members, Karen and Tamanna, were approved by the committee as nominees for the Conflict Resolution Administrator role. These nominations mark a step forward in operationalizing the policy and putting the structure into practice. Following the conflict resolution discussion, the committee turned its attention to the SDP network's email use and letters violation policy. Facilitator Adonis Huggins read the policy aloud, opening the floor for a detailed conversation. Let's take you into that conversation.
Okay, so the next we have a draft email policy that we are creating. This is not for approval. It's just for feedback. It's a draft. Again, one of the things that happened is in the past is that letters have gone out to members of the community. Often they don't have people who are not involved in this. Anyways, we have I'd like to read what we have. Again, we're not voting on it. We're just getting feedback, and also people can give feedback after this meeting. I'm hoping to have it approved at the next planning committee. And so it's called the, Wally, can you bring it up, zooming in? But it's called the SDP Network Email Use and Letters Violation Policy. Again, this is not approved. It's just something that we are in draft about. And I'll just go through it. Preamble: personal emails and letters are an effective tool for SDP members to disseminate information about events, activities, upcoming meetings, share ideas with other members, obtain feedback, or advocate for a position. Unfortunately, members can use personal emails and letters inappropriately. Inappropriate use of emails include content that promotes misinformation and/or misunderstanding, airs personal complaints and/or conflicts, or harasses, abuses, and criticizes members. Inappropriate use of emails and letters damages the credibility and reputation of the SDP. This policy aims to provide clear guidelines to members for 1, sending personal emails and letters on behalf of the SDP network or any of its represented bodies or members. 2, sending personal emails and letters whose contents are considered to be associated or related to the SDP network or its represented bodies or members. 3, addressing violations of the SDP network's email and letter policy by members. And it's the limitation of this policy. It's the knowledge that this policy cannot cover the actions of non-members. So this is only for SDP members. It's only for members who are representing the SDP, and it's only for members who use the SDP or mention the SDP in their personal emails. So one is called, the first part of this is called prior consent. If an SDP network member intends to send an email or letter on behalf of the network or its stakeholders table, work groups, or committees, the individual must obtain prior consent by the members of the body it is sending an email on behalf of. Essentially, if you're sending on behalf of the communications committee a letter, you should ensure that that letter is approved by the communications working group. Do not include the names of anyone, including co-chairs, that has not given prior agreement, and be sure that the email letter is representative of the issues articulated by the group. So that means essentially don't put names of co-chairs if they aren't there on your letter. So yeah. All posters and announcements should be reviewed by the group prior to releasing. For material that should be distributed across the SDP network's listserv, members should send their information to the SDP administrator for distribution. I said, okay. Going on to 2, use clear and professional communication. The email or letter should clearly state the subject of the email letter in the subject email/letter in the subject heading. The content of the email letter should include the individual member's name, who is sending the email, their role within the network, who they are representing, and the purposes for sending the email. 3, accurate information. Ensure that the information you are communicating is accurate with the right dates and times. If an error is discovered, email a retraction letting senders know of the error or that they are to ignore your previous email. 3, avoid email blasts. Avoid email blasts by sending direct email messages or letters to those members or people immediately involved. Don't include members or people that are not involved in the issue. If sending email announcements, use blind copies so addresses of senders are not visible in the body of the email. If unsure how to use blind copies, seek help from the SDP. Can you bring it up a bit, Waleed? Seek help from the SDP administrator or a knowledgeable member. 4, don't send inappropriate or unprofessional emails and letters. When an SDP network member uses an inappropriate or unprofessional personal email letter that is associated with the SDP, including the stakeholders tables, work groups, or committees, or sends an inappropriate or unprofessional email letter on behalf of the network, including stakeholders tables, work groups, and committees. So one is associated with the SDP, meaning they're not sending it on behalf of the SDP, but they have mentioned the SDP in some way, or it poses risk to the organization's reputation of the SDP network. Such behavior often involves unprofessional tone, misuse of contact lists, or violating confidentiality, nasty, accusatory, harassing, or unprofessional content requiring swift action to manage the relationship. Inappropriate or unprofessional emails or letters include the following: harassment or bullying. Consider unwelcoming, offensive, humiliating, or demeaning messages, discrimination, disrespectful behavior based on race, ethnicity, faith, age, gender, sexuality, or other protected characteristics, unprofessional conduct, rambling, gossiping, using all caps, name calling, or inappropriate humor or sarcasm. Personal use, using organization contact lists and email letter communications for personal gain or promoting outside interests, or taking a stand on positions that are not endorsed by the SDP network or any of its represented bodies. Airing of personal conflicts. Go up a little bit, Waleed. Accusatory allegations or claims of wrongdoing, complaints or claims about the behaviors of others. Defamation, accusing someone of lying or bullying. Using emails or letters to deal with conflicts between members rather than filing an independent incident report form and going through the SDP network's conflict resolution process. So violations of the SDP network email letter use policy and remedies. Document the violation, save the email including headers, timestamps, and context, fill out and file the SDP incident report form, have the offending member cease all further communication, have the chair or co-chair of the SDP planning committee or co-chair of the co-chair of the body, the chair or the co-chair of the body associated with the email or letter that is not part of the conflict with the individual member, or appropriate designate to immediately instruct the member to cease all communications with members or sending out other emails until the issue is discussed and resolved. And then the next step is discuss the violating email and letter with the member. Have the chair or co-chair of the SDP planning committee or chair or co-chair of the body associated in the email that is not in part of the conflict with the individual member, or appropriate designate to speak with the member directly to remind them of the email letter use and violation policy and address the behavior by working with the member to issue an apology or a retraction. Sometimes a direct conversation can resolve the issue, particularly if they are unaware of the policy. And then the next step would be issuing an apology or retraction. When sending an apology or retraction, it's best to act quickly and use a clear subject line such as correction, please disregard, or my apology, and be sent to the same recipients as the original email or letter. The message should be concise, admit the mistake simply, and briefly state the error without over-explaining. For emails containing defamatory information, a statement should be made clearly identifying the incorrect statement, acknowledging its falsity. The email or letter should tell the recipient what to do, such as deleting the previous email or letter or referring to a new one. Close the retraction by offering a sincere apology for the inconvenience and sign off with your name and title. Prior to sending an apology or retraction, it's best to have the SDP administrator or someone you trust review the apology for feedback. And then proceed with the use of the last stage is proceed with the use of conflict resolution policy. In the event that this is a repeated violation or the issue is not resolved and the member refuses to remedy the situation by acknowledgement of wrongdoing, issuing an apology or retraction, the chair or co-chair of the SDP planning committee or chair or co-chair of the body associated with the email letter or appropriate designate can with consent of the SDP representative body, issue a retraction of the email/letter and proceed with the steps that are outlined in the SDP network's conflict resolution policy. So that is you might want to leave it on for people to discuss. So we're taking questions. Waleed, Dini, Michael, proceed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adonis, for putting this together. I really like the spirit of this policy and most of the clauses. My only suggestion is references to personal emails should be deleted from the policy because we have no over personal emails. I think if it's an email from the person, to any body or to any individual on behalf of the planning committee, the working groups, or the committees of the SDP. I think that's germane. But when we say personal, it's personal. Like, we can't, if someone sends an email to city staff that's personal, or sends an email to an agency that's personal, we have no jurisdiction over that. We have jurisdiction over matters related to the social development plan with the SDP planning committee. We're not, we're not there to police correspondence that are personal in nature. So that's the only feedback I have. Everything else seems
clear. Just a clarification, Waleed. So if someone sends a personal email that says, sorry,
personal on behalf.
Someone says a personal email that says that brings out a member. When we're talking about person, we're only talking about members. So if a member sends a personal email that slanders the SDP, you're saying that they should be able to do that?
That's not a personal email. That's not how I interpret
personal email. No, they're sending it from their personal email. I'm just wanting to clarify.
If they're sending an email from their personal email account, it doesn't make it personal. If they're sending it out to, I think we just need to clarify that if it's SDP business, this policy applies. If it's not SDP business, this does not apply. If we can add that, that makes sense to me. But I don't want people to conflate that you being critical, or you had a bad experience, with someone, and you want to complain. Like, that has nothing to do with the SDP, right? Like, that is not germane. But if it's related to the SDP, we also need to appreciate, like, what can they do in those circumstances? And I think we're working towards that remedy right now.
Okay, I'm not clear what you mean by business, but let's go on, because I thought that's clear that there, and maybe that needs to be clear. But go ahead, Dini.
Yeah, I think you need to have some more conversation, because I don't think that it's being understood. Because my understanding of what you're saying here about personal emails is if it's personal emails that's sent on behalf of the SDP network. And it's pretty clear. It says there, sending.
No, he said more than that.
I'm saying more than that. I'm saying if someone sends a personal email that actually slanders a member of the SDP and names it, slanders a working group and names it, or slanders the SDP and is considered, and they are a member, then this should apply to them as well. It's not that they have to say I'm writing on behalf. They could say I am a member of the community, whatever group, and I think the SDP sucks, or whatever they want to write. Keep in mind, we have an incident report form where people have complaints that they could go through this process. It's not to settle complaints.
My hand was up for a different.
Go ahead, Dini, and then Michael, and then Gail. Go ahead, Dini. Continue.
Yeah, it's the blank copy. The number 3, avoid email blasts. I think it might be useful to add an appendix of how to blank copy, so that you can then see Appendix A, because it's sometimes there's an accessibility issue trying to get a hold of the administrator. But it'd be nice if you just put, a clear language tutorial on how to do it in the policy.
We have Michael, and then Gail, and then Karen.
Okay, so it might not hurt to do that, but it won't solve the problem, because the most recent case, the emails went out. They didn't go out to the CC. They went out in a different way. So even if you explain to people how to do blind copies, you still have to tell them, also be aware of other features of your software that may let the emails out. So it's a little bit more complicated than just explaining blind copies. So getting back to the more substantive issues about how does this apply, I thought it was pretty clear that Adonis wanted it to apply in two different cases. I'm not 100% sure whether Waleed was disagreeing with that, but I would be okay with just the case of representing the SDP. The other case is very broad, and I would like it, even if we make it include somewhat more than the just representing the SDP, I don't think it should be as broad as Adonis wants it to be. So I think we should try to come up with some wording that may include a little bit, but not as broad as the way it's written there. There's also a bit of a conflict here between what Adonis wanted to write here and what it already says in the conflict resolution policy. Because the conflict resolution policy doesn't say people cannot communicate about their conflict. It just advises them not to. They still have the right to. And I think that this is a jurisdiction issue, as Waleed said. We may not agree on exactly what that jurisdiction is or what the solution is, but I think that there are a couple of points in this that actually have to be substantively changed to reduce the scope at least a little bit.
Okay, Gail.
I think maybe there's an opportunity because there are two kind of things that you're trying to get at, that maybe they are separate documents, just helps for people to digest. And then maybe you're tackling one and then the other in terms of review. I think you can also maybe change up some of the language. So maybe we're just looking at the concepts right now, but I think you want to improve the language like unfortunately, right? And just kind of state here's what the intent is, right? So yeah, that was a big thing. The document, I think I'd have to go through a little bit more, but the initial few lines that I read, it kind of portrayed the negative, and rather than saying here's the policy or here's the expectation, so.
Okay, thanks, Gail.
But sorry, and then my other thing on that is, being able to look back maybe at a couple scenarios and then applying this lens to see what that end result is.
Okay, Aaron.
I have a couple of things. I'm definitely on the learning curve. So even, I don't know what a full blast email is. I wasn't in an office environment. I left the office. I'm more in customer service. So I do have a learning curve that maybe, Michael, you were saying that you wanted, why did you think that it should be more general or less general?
It shouldn't be as restrictive as it is. So some of the kinds of things that are covered here should not be included in this document.
But then, having said
what Waleed said, that there might be certain things that people say that are their own business, and you might not like it, might not even reflect well on the SDP, but they're entitled to say that.
Exactly. And so that I see why it would just, because this is kind of like, this is what happened in a political level as well, right? So it's just easier that you have an SDP email and you have a personal, and they don't mix at all. And then you don't have to worry about what's acceptable and what's not. Or is that not, it's not as easy said as done?
Okay.
I would love
I'm
to speak
asking
to
a
that.
question. Sorry,
Okay,
I'm
well,
asking a
we-
question.
Well, I want to answer your question, Karen, if that's okay.
Yeah, just because I
Who's
really
next, so
don't
maybe you
know.
could
And I
speak to
think
that. Go ahead,
sometimes
Wally.
there's a lot of people that are like me that don't know, but they don't want to ask.
I agree with you. So we do have a SDP email account
Right?
where we send out when we send out official correspondence
Yeah.
to City Hall or to the province,
okay.
wherever. Well, mostly City Hall because that's who we interact with the most.
Right?
It comes from that SDP email account and it's sent by the SDP administrator, right? But sometimes the co-chairs of the SDP are, authorized by the planning committee to send out correspondence on their behalf, but that
Right.
information is vetted and approved by the planning committee.
Right.
My suggestion to Adonis is to remove the reference of personal. Just say emails and letters are ineffective. Like, we don't want people to confuse or to conflate personal correspondence with this policy because we can't enforce it, right? Like, I can't stop you from sending a personal email to whoever you want, right? About any issue that you are passionate about, even if it's to criticize the SDP. It's unenforceable.
Freedom of
right?
speech or something like that. Right?
Exactly. It will undermine that. But if you are sending an email and trying to portray your personal position, which is different, as the position of the network or the working group or of the planning committee, I believe this policy should apply and there should be sanctions, which are going to be talked about later on. I think that's fair.
Okay.
Right. So
just quickly,
that's my point.
Just quickly, I wanted to say,
Karen,
I see both of your points.
Can I get back on the speaker's list?
Hold on,
Okay,
Karen.
because I had another question, but now I can't remember.
Okay,
I see both of your
question, Karen. Can you hold your question? Deanie's next.
Oh, but I did get to fit okay. I'll just put it down and put it back up again. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I'm learning.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just I'm trying to keep order here.
Yeah, I hear you.
Deanie, go ahead.
Yeah, if somebody's no longer a member, they're not restricted by this policy.
Yeah.
But if they're still a member of the SDP network, I don't think it should be okay for them to condemn, insult, or criticize the SDP network or any of its members.
Yes.
I don't care if they use their personal email to do so.
Agreed.
It still should not be acceptable.
And there's sorry.
Okay,
I'll put my hand up.
Back. Michael, then back to Livy, and then back to Tamia. Go ahead.
Okay, so just a couple of also smaller points, and then I'll get back to the sort of the substantive issue here. So first of all, the wording is many places in the document where it says chair or co-chairs or designate. I don't think we should be giving that much power or influence to the co-chairs. I think in any case, we don't have chairs, it's just co-chairs. So I think that should say not co-chairs or designate, it should say co-chairs or someone appointed by the group. So if it allows some flexibility that it's not totally in the hands of the co-chairs. So I think that would be a change. It's not substantive to the main issue we're talking about. Another thing I want to point out is that in the case of the most recent thing that happened that everybody is so concerned about, this policy doesn't address it very well. Because in that case, the availability of the email addresses did not go out through CC. It went out in a different way. And I've addressed that about 4 or 5 times now. People have to understand there are other ways to leak email addresses. It's very important to understand that because that's one of your big concerns. You need to know that it can happen in other ways. And the other sort of difficulty there is that the reply itself it said re. In other words, it was a reply. It wasn't actually intended to sound like it came from the SDP. So that raises a third sort of level between sort of things that merely mention the SDP and things that are pretending to be on behalf of the SDP, which is when you create confusion between the two. So I would say that that the problem here isn't just the word personal, it's the words associated or related to. Those two words are also too strong. I think maybe it should cover the case where it may cause confusion as to whether it's representing the SDP. That's fine with me. But I don't like the word related to, because people should be able to say something that's related to. And the word associated is really ambiguous. We have to clarify that, or maybe replace it with what I said, which is something that may cause confusion as to whether it came from the SDP. But I fundamentally think this should be restricted to things that appear to come from the SDP, not people's comments that they might make about the SDP. That's not a restriction we should try to impose on people, even if they are our members. We should not impose a restriction on people talking about the SDP.
Sorry, Michael, can I just add on to that? Instead of putting related, can we put concern? Because it is a concern itself, and that way it's more professional. Like, would you suggest that?
No, I don't like the word concern, because we've already heard that people are concerned about people's opinions, and I don't think people, like, you can have a concern, but you can't have a policy that's saying that because you're concerned about something, somebody else can't do it. That's what I object to. So I think if it's a concern, they should go straight to the conflict resolution process and skip the rest of this policy.
Okay, folks. Tamia, you were answering a question, but you're also on the speakers list. Did you get your question, or did you want a statement?
I'm sorry. I think Denny covered that. I was going to say the similar thing, so I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, before we continue with Waleed, which would be next, I just want to be clear that, because there seems to me the main issue here is, one is sending an email or a letter on behalf of the SDP, which is covered in this. So if you're sending in terms of how this would be used, if someone is appointed to send a letter on behalf of the SDP and they use unprofessional language, then they could be confronted with that through this email. Whether they use their personal email or not. So that's one issue. So when you're sending it on behalf of the SDP or its parties. The other issue is, I'm just a member. I'm using my personal email. And damn it, I'm using the communications committee because that's my own committee. At the communications committee about the decision that was made, I'm sending this to the city. The city shouldn't fund the SDP.
Yeah,
how would the SDP? It's not representative. The decisions that they made are totally wrong. So you're saying, based on what Michael is saying and others who are saying, sorry, I shouldn't say names, but you're saying the SDP should just let that go. That's a member who did that, and that's okay, because they are not speaking on behalf of the committee. I want to make this clear, because once this is done, it's done, and there's no way to address any kind of personal stuff that happens as members. So what we're saying is, members have a responsibility here to act professional. If they're going to include the statements about the SDP, that they should be ensured that the statements are correct, that they are using professional language, and they're not defaming, disrespecting members of the SDP. If we don't do that, then we're basically saying this policy only applies for those who are speaking on behalf of the SDP. I want to make it clear.
So I want to withdraw. My critique.
Wally,
Adonis, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I want to withdraw my critique of the word personal. I get it. It applies to SDP members. So if you're an SDP member, you have a responsibility. So I was confused at the beginning. I thought it was just anyone who's corresponding with stakeholders. They can do that personally. But if you're a member of the planning committee, if you're a member of the working groups, there is an expectation to conduct yourself in a professional manner, in a respectful manner, in a manner that respects the rights of other members, and to also prevent reputational damage for the SDP network. So I am convinced. So I'm going to
Can I put my hand
withdraw
up? Am I in
that
the
change.
line?
So thank you.
You're next, Karen.
Okay, so there's a couple things just quickly. So what I was trying to say before is you as a group right now are so used to your policies that you know those things. But you have people from the community that are coming in that you have to make them as simple as possible. And so that's why I was agreeing with the way that you stated it. Adonis, I'm sorry, I think that's your name. But things like putting in private email, Michael didn't like that, but you have to make it that you kind of let people know because not everybody's as knowledgeable as you are, number one. And when people get upset, number two, they don't think properly, right? So you have to kind of set it up. This is my feedback because I don't know anything, right? And then my other question was, so I've started coming to the meetings. Does that mean I'm a member? Like what is the definition of a member? I'm sorry, one other quick thing. One other quick thing, because it sounds like something happened just before, and that's why this issue is coming up. But maybe you might want to have a quick, like acknowledgement before every meeting that you are. This is because this is really sensitive material that we as a community are allowed to have an input on. But you can't just be chatting. People are going to be able to give their opinion, and they should be able to, but they should be reminded that they need to act accordingly, no matter if they agree or disagree, because they are allowed to agree or disagree. But that doesn't mean that you have to start calling people ugly names. There's ways to, present your frustration without being ugly or unkind. I'm done.
Thanks, Karen. We could talk about some of the other questions.
All right. So I do have a clarification.
Remember?
So my point is not so much about the use of the word personal or the use of the word member. It was about what would apply to the members. I'm not saying it doesn't apply to the members. My problem was with the word associated and related. Okay. Adonis said that if we didn't do what he said, we were just dealing with people speaking on behalf of the SDP. I proposed that this could apply to people who are not speaking on behalf of the SDP, but only people who say they're speaking on behalf of the SDP when they're not. So as long as they're clear that they're not speaking for the SDP, that's when I didn't want it to apply. So I was not saying this only applies to people who are speaking for the SDP. I said this applies to people who are speaking for the SDP, people who say they're speaking for the SDP when they're not, and people who say things in a way that causes confusion about whether they're speaking for the SDP. Those are the categories I wanted to use, not just and only the category of people who are speaking for the SDP. That is my clarification. And so that can include members as long as they fall into one of those categories.
So can you tell me how do you become a member?
Karen, hold on. We got Deanie on the speakers list, and then we can.
My question wasn't answered, though. I don't.
We put in our terms of reference a number of statements about who is a member and so on and so forth, but on a day-to-day basis, we seem to take it fairly informally as whoever shows up in meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Deanie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of other organizations that are concerned about their reputation, they have these kind of expectations in their code of conduct. So it's not like unknown territory.
Right.
Okay. I can't see the speakers list. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this issue?
The only person whose hand is up is Karen.
Oh, I think I just didn't lower it. Sorry.
Okay. So we will go back to the
I have to leave this for a minute.
go back to the board. I mean, go back to the draft, make some changes, and bring it back up for discussion again. I think there seems to be still at least there is a consensus that people who are speaking on behalf, who state that they are speaking on behalf of the SDP or its working groups, so that this policy would be generally okay. Of course, there was wordsmithing to do and making it more easy in terms of language. So that's one issue. I think generally we have agreement about people who speak on behalf of the SDP. There still seems to be some needs more clarity around people who are just giving their personal opinions, but still being slanderous of members of the SDP or slanderous of the working groups themselves. So there seems to be idea that they should be able to do that from some people, and others who feel they absolutely should not be able to do that. So that's the principle, but there's more clarity around what constitutes. I hear in terms of there needs to be clarity in terms of what constitutes association or I use the word association or related. So maybe there needs to be more clarity around that. But generally, I think those are some of the main areas.
Even if we decided to go with something substantially like this, would you accept an addition that says opinions that are expressed in a respectful manner, even if they are negative, are acceptable?
Absolutely. I think that.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that would at least provide a better boundary to what we're actually talking about here.
But does that still allow an individual member to criticize the SDP and be a member?
I think
that should be allowed.
Yeah, I think if it's done
like respectful criticism is generally acceptable.
Yeah, if it's professional, it's respectful, I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's a slippery slope.
So can I just say one thing? I just want to mention that I don't want any confusion. I want to thank Adonis and other members of the planning committee for providing clarity. I think we should have zero tolerance when it comes to any actions that could undermine the safety of other members or the participation of other members or reputational damages for the network. So when I took away the personal, I thought it was not within scope, but now I understand that it's connected to members, not just general Regent Park residents. So I just want to make it very clear that my earlier comments, I take that back. And I think we should actually have zero tolerance for this. See a safe space for everybody. And yes, critique is normal. Critique is normal. Like we criticize each other all the time. We need to criticize each other to get better.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can we find some wording to that effect?
Is meant to do that. Yeah, that's fine.
So can we just have some wording on that?
I accept
that critiques are acceptable as long as they are expressed in a respectful manner.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we could agree on that.
Okay.
Again, this was supposed to cover unprofessional, inappropriate emails.
Right.
Okay, folks, I think that's good. I think
I have a quick question.
Yes.
quick. So I don't know what happened, but at another time, it would be nice to maybe discuss it in a third way for people that don't know as a learning moment, because obviously it sounds.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Karen, it's not one particular issue. We have a whole history of
Okay.
emails and letters.
Okay.
So it's not one. And this is something that we have been thinking about for a long time.
And
but
so finally you've decided to put it down on paper.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Can we move on to the next agenda? Again, we will bring this back for discussion
My hand is up.
with the changes that have been suggested.
Okay.
So I think I agree with Deanie that we should not water this down. So whatever that wording changes, it really shouldn't water down what we're trying to do. I also, I think in your phrasing to the question, Adonis, you said we were thinking about it for a while. I don't know, maybe we were. I don't know that, but I know that the last email was the catalyst for this, right? So, we went from let's have a conversation with that person to let's create an email policy. I think this is an opportunity to share, Karen asks, where did this come from? I think there's an opportunity to share that email. Maybe there are others that can be shared so that there can be context around it.
Not necessarily. It could be didactic. We don't need to do the actual
Well, it
people,
was
but
shared
the
with all
issue,
the city
I-
what the
councillors,
problem.
so I don't
Illuminate
think it's
the
hidden
problem.
information. It was shared with all the
Yeah.
city councillors across
let's-
Toronto.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so there's the emails. Yes, that's not the first one. There have been many, right?
Okay.
Their decisions were made about others that were sent, right? And I've said it over and over again that they were unfair, right? And people walked away from this planning table as well because of. But then we also had folks who came. There was a scenario where we had co-chairs of community building come. They were not happy with conversations that were happening around, I think, Palestine and that scenario. And that was an extremely abusive rant, for lack of a better term. But again, right, so if someone is upset about something, is that the outlet that they use, and is that what we accept as the outlet?
And that's why private and not private in the information is important, because they'll feign ignorance when they're backed into a corner. So if you have in there no personal, then there's no personal. Don't use it.
So then the other thing that I would take in my observation, I'm a Black gay woman living in Regent Park, and what I see, I'm Black, so I know when discrimination is there, whether it applies to Black bodies, brown bodies, Indigenous bodies. And so I do see there is a level of unfairness with how many of these scenarios transpire, and then how this body decides to proceed. I don't even want to say react, because those are contentious words, but how we decide to move through those scenarios. So, it's tenuous, but again, this just becomes, I see this just becomes another document, just like Shaping Cultures, just another document. And it is going to, I know, I've seen, it's going to be used for those who are being unfair, right? It's not going to, let's just say, it's not going to, I don't see it that it's going to be used fairly. And that is what my experience has been. That's not I believe, I think that's a fact. Those are factual experiences, right? That have happened, right?
Great. But I think what we're trying to do as we begin to get more organized and become more structured, begin to put policies in place that apply to everybody. That's our goal.
Exactly.
That's what we're trying to do. And so we're not going back to pick fights with
Learn and grow.
visit arguments that have happened in the past, our past ways of doing things. What we're trying to do is get organized so that we have clear policies and that it can be applied to everybody across.
Exactly. Here.
That's our goal. So I don't think it helps to look at any past emails or past letters. I think what we're trying to do is create a policy which then becomes clear to everybody and is visible to everybody through, again, we just developed a website where everyone can see these documents. So it becomes clear to people how we're going to proceed going forward. And so that's the idea. There's no need to go back to look at past, because we could go back to the beginning of the SDP to look at issues. And that's not the idea. The idea is to put in place conflict resolution policies, a conflict administrator, a way of doing things, policies that make it clear of what how people should be acting and behaving to each other, and take accountability. So that's what we're trying to do. So again, I'm really not interested in going back and looking at previous cases and how previous cases were taken care of. And I hope people agree with me on that. Okay, really, thank you so much, and see you on Tuesdays.
Monday.
Or Saturday, or
Monday.
Saturday.
Oh, Saturday.
Saturday.
But there's also,
and then Monday
there's
for the
also a
safety
meeting on
committee.
Monday, though, right? There's a meeting on Monday.
The safety committee meets on Monday. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Goodbye, folks.
Bye. Have a good weekend. Safe.
Thank you.
Committee members engaged in a long and thoughtful exchange about the communication standards, accountability, and how the network maintains respectful professional correspondence. Given the depth of the discussion, the committee agreed that additional work is needed before finalizing the policy. This matter will return in future meetings for continued refinement. As the social development plan continues to evolve, conversations around governance, accountability, and communication remain central to strengthening the network's work in Regent Park. For Regent Park TV, I'm Davar.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and visit us on all our social media platforms. Please visit our website for more information.